Hey guys, welcome to Programming Knowledge. In this video, we'll talk about overloading and overriding in C++. So let me just write it down here. It's overloading and overriding. Alright, so let's first talk about functions for a moment, right? So when we learned functions, we told that functions are nothing but a piece of code to be executed separately so that your program can be broken down into a set of functions which will do the work, and then all the results can be integrated together to solve the problem, right? So now let's say you want a function which can do multiple things. That is not possible, right? When we define a function, if we are defining a function, we need to be sure that we pass the same number of arguments or the same kind of arguments to the function to make it work. So let's say I do something like int add, which is going to take in two integers, so int a and int b. And what it will do, it will just return a plus b. Now I can use this function without any problem, and I can even pass integers over here, right? Sorry, I can even pass characters over here, because as you know, characters are nothing but integers behind the scenes. They have their ASCII values, and when you pass a character as an integer, it is considered as the character's ASCII value, right? So basically I can pass integers and characters and floats too, because as you know, because of the typecasting, the floats will be converted to integers and the operation will perform. But what about strings? I cannot add two strings using this function, right? So if I use this function, I can only add two numbers or two characters and get back an integer. I cannot add two strings using this function. It will give me an error, right? So how do we go about solving problems where you want to solve problems using the same function signature? You don't want to write multiple different functions for the same thing, but all the functions are actually similar in nature. That means that these functions can be grouped together. So that's when overloading comes into the picture. So what you do is you keep the signature same, all right? You keep that same, but you can alter the parameters over here and redefine the function. And when you compile the program, the compiler will see the inputs which you are giving, the parameters, and then it will use the suitable function definition for that parameter. All right, so for an example, let's quickly write a small program. So let's write a function to determine whether something, a given input, is a palindrome or not. All right, so if you don't know what a palindrome is nothing but anything which can be read the same way from right to left or left to right. So if you take a word as madam, so madam, if you read it from left to right or right to left, it still remains the same, right? So these kinds of things are called palindromes. It is the same with numbers too. If I do 1001, this is also a palindrome, right? Now our problem is to write a function so that the function can identify palindromes in both strings and numbers. All right. So this is our task. So how do we go about this? Well, writing for strings is pretty easy, right? So let us first write a definition for that function. So let's say bool, because we are going to return a true or false, and it's called palindrome, and it will take a string, so let's call it str for now, right? And to compare palindrome, what we need to do is we need to well, if you think about it, the logic is very simple. I will uh, leave it to you to come up with different methods to solve this particular problem, but for now let's go with the simpler methods, right? So what we can do is we can just iterate over the strings and go on comparing the first and last character of the string. Another way to do this is to reverse a string and then compare it. Well, the first way is more efficient, but I want to take this opportunity to show you that string data type has a lots of methods in it, and one of the method is a reverse, right? So basically what we are doing, we are just, when we are comparing whether our input is a palindrome or not, what we are doing is we are checking whether the number or the string, even if it is reversed, reads the same thing or not, right? That is, if it reads the same thing, it's a palindrome. If it doesn't, it is not a palindrome. So to do that, what we can do is this string class or the string data type does have lots of methods with it. So if you check for string reverse in C++, you do have a function to reverse a string, right? So basically you can do it manually as shown here. You can use a for loop, or you even have a function to reverse a string. All right, so once again I'm just searching for that. Yeah, this one. So here if you see, you can directly reverse this using this kind of a method, right? So I'll just copy this thing so that I don't have to write it again. But basically this is the way you can reverse a string. And as I told you, the other way would be to just compare the first and last characters and so on, right? So you compare the 0 and the last character, 1 and the last but one character, 2 and the last but two character, and so on. So if you just compare that, that will be more efficient. So yeah, so we can just copy this and paste it over here so that we get the reverse of this string. And what I can do is I can just compare whether the string and reverse are equal or not. So if the string is equal to the reverse, then well, I just need to return true, else return false. So let's quickly try some examples here. So see out, let's say palindrome of madam. All right, and yeah, this method won't I mean allow you to compare strings with different cases, right? So if I do something like MADAM, this won't be considered as a palindrome. All right, so I'm not taking that edge case for now. So let's just try to keep this simple, but you're open to try out all the edge cases and then come up with a very efficient algorithm to find out whether a string is a palindrome or not. All right, so the purpose of this video is not to explain you how to get a palindrome, but it's basically to explain you overloading or overriding, which we'll do in a moment. All right, so for now this is our program, and if we run this using control F9, what does it say? Palindrome is not declared in the scope. Okay, I have written palindrome, so palindrome. So here you get 1, right? So 1 is basically true and 0 is false, so you know that, right? So now here if I try something else, so let's just try the casing one. So as I told you, this should not be a palindrome compared by this method, right? So we are not comparing cases here. Sorry, we are comparing different cases here. So small m is different from capital M, right? So this will not be a palindrome to the compiler. So it will say it's not a palindrome. So you get a 0 over here, which is false, right? So we have written a string palindrome, but what if I pass in a number over here? So something like 1001. If I run this, I'll be getting an error. It says could not convert this from into a string. So this whole thing is nothing but a string. All right. So to to make this function work even for strings, either what I can either do is I can just say palindrome string and then define an entirely different method for integer palindrome, or what I can do is I can just say bool palindrome. So notice that the signature is same, the return type and the name of the function is same, but here I'm just going to say int n. All right, so here I'm keeping the integer, and to find the reverse of an integer you have a small logic. So I'm not going to go through the logic. Basically what you do is you have a multiple, or very well we can just copy and paste that logic from here since we're not discussing about palindrome. So let's say int palindrome C plus plus. Why do I keep writing palindrome over here? So yeah, so this is what you do. So basically the same thing is going on over here. What this program does is it will find the reverse of the number using this logic. So basically reverse of a number is nothing but you extract every number. Every number is basically the reminder when you divide that number by 10, the r is nothing but the last digit. All right, so n mod 10, as I told you over here, if I do mod 10, it will basically give me the last number. And sorry about that. And here what you're doing is you're just adding that last number by a multiple of 10. So what basically happens is you have 1, and when you store it, what you do is you just store it as 0 into 10 plus 1. So basically you first have sum equal to 0, like this, sum or anything, reverse number, anything you can call that, it will be 0. And you, what you do is 0 into 10 plus 1, and you put it inside the reverse number. So basically now this has become 1, right? 0 into 10 is 0, plus 1 is 1. Now what you do is you divide this by 10. So 1001 by 10, which is basically 100. So next again you run this loop. So you do this reverse equal to reverse into 10 plus the last digit. So let's call this last digit. So this is what you do every time. All right, so now what you do, 1 into 10, which is 10, plus the last digit is 0, so you get 10 here. So this is how you reverse the number. So let's quickly write that. I thought of copying it, but since I explained it, it's very simple. So in reverse equal to 0, what you have is, while the number exists, well, we cannot directly use the number, so you need to store the number somewhere for later comparison, right? So we'll just say int num equal to n, we'll store a copy of that. And while n, that means while the number is not 0, so as I told you, in C++, the booleans and integers are related, right? So any number except 0 is true, 0 is false. So it will run until n becomes 0. So till then what to do is, we'll say int the last digit equal to the number mod 10. This will give you the last digit. And what you need to do, you need to say reverse equal to the reverse into 10, previous value of reverse into 10 plus the last digit, and the number will become 1/10 of itself. So number equal to number by 10, right? So this is what we'll be doing. And let's just print out the reverse for now. All right, so let's just print out the reverse number so that we are sure that it's working, and we'll just return something. So we just return true for now. All right, so now if you see, if I run this program, I did not specify any different name for this, right? So basically both these functions have the same name, but the parameters are different. So when a compiler will see this, it will see that I'm using an integer, so automatically it will understand that I am calling this function. All right, so if I pass in a string here, it will automatically call this function. But here, since we have overloaded this function, this process is known as overloading basically. All right, so overloading is nothing but you just take the same function, you don't change any word in that, I mean any signature in that. So the signature remains the same, you cannot change this return type, but you can change the number of variables and the variables nature itself. So I can even add number of variables over here, it doesn't matter. All right, so if I do that, and now if I run this, if I now compile and run this, I'll be getting 1001. That is the reverse number and then the 1. So if you're confused, let me just add a new line over here and we'll run this again. And here you can see the reverse is 1001, which is what we required, and the true part which came from this statement. All right, so now since we have the reverse, it's pretty straightforward, just like this one, right? So you can just do something like if the number which we saved, this one, is equal to the reverse number, then it's basically a palindrome, so return true, else return false. So even if you write else, it doesn't matter, because if this is true, it will directly return it. So I'm skipping the else part, so return false over here, and this should do, right? So now if you run this program, what you have is a palindrome checker for both strings and integers. So I can even pass integers over here, and I can even pass strings over here. So let's say Malayalam. All right, so this is also a palindrome, so let's check whether the spelling is right or not. Yalam, yeah, perfect. So now if I run this, I'll get 1 over here. And if I try to run something else, I won't be getting perfect result. So if I do that, and if I run this, I'll be getting 0. Or even if I pass in numbers over here, so if I do that, this one, so this is not a palindrome. If I run this, I'll be getting 0. So yeah, this is the use of overloading. When you have a same function, I mean the same function signature, but you want to use it for different kinds of variables and different number of variables. This is how you can use the same function to achieve what you want, right? So here the advantage is that we are not maintaining multiple copies of the same function, but what we are essentially doing is we are maintaining multiple signatures of the same function. So this whole thing is called a signature, and the return type and this should not change. All right, so only the parameter list can change. So this one will only be maintained separately, and these two function definitions will be maintained. The advantage is that you don't have to remember or give informative big names to different functions. So I don't have to worry about overloading. If I'm doing something like this is for string like this, palindrome str and palindrome int, if I'm doing something like this, I don't even have to worry about overloading. But basically the whole point of overloading is that you can have a single function doing multiple things. That is the idea of overloading. And when is this useful? It is useful when we are doing inheritance, and at that time this thing is called overloading, right? So basically these two are the same thing. All right, overloading or overriding just mean that you are using the same function with different parameter lists and different definitions. All right, but overriding is used when you're overloading a function in different classes. When you overload a function from a base class inside a child class, that is known as overriding. And if you overload the same function inside the base class itself, that is overloading. So that is the only difference between overloading and overriding, or else both are the same concept. So to demonstrate overriding, you can just use this one. So what I can do is I can say class say A for now, and this is going to be a public definition so that I can inherit it, and I can just push all these things inside this A, right? And yeah, take care of the indentation over here, and we'll maintain another class B, and inside this I'll just pass these things again. So public, and pass it over here, right? Now if I do a public inheritance over here, what will happen is, as you know, this palindrome will get inherited inside here, but since I'm doing this, it will get overridden. All right, so this method won't act as a string palindrome checker for class B, but it will act as a integer palindrome checker inside class B. So for an object of class B, if you call object.palindrome, if I do something like let's say obj equal, sorry, b obj, all right, this is a new object of class B, and if I do obj dot palindrome, all right, so if I do this, it will only be valid for an integer palindrome. All right, so if I not do that, you will be getting 0 over here. Of course it's not a palindrome, but if I do that and run this, I'll be getting an error. It says it is not integer. So to take care of this issue, there's a method to actually use the functions of the superclass. Superclass is basically the parent class, which I'll talk about in a later video, because that is something very important and we will be using that very much while using abstract classes. So basically all this overloading and overriding, all these concepts come into play when we are using abstract classes. Well, this is not limited only to the functions. You can even overload the constructors also if you want to. So that is the scope of overloading and overriding. In the next video, we'll talk about how to access this function, like the super function, from a child class. So we'll see how to do that in the next video. Until then, happy coding.